Welcome to Inside the Indians, your source for insider information on the Tribe. Stay with us as we bring you the latest about the players, managers, and people behind the scenes at Victory Field. Now here's your host, the longtime broadcast voice of the Indians, Howard Kellman.
Hi everybody, welcome to Inside the Indians. On today's show, we'll talk to the manager of the Indianapolis Indians, Brian Esposito. We'll also speak with infielder, outfielder Jake Elmore, who also caught in the big leagues once. And we'll talk with Tribe catcher Christian Kelley. We'll be back with Espo. This is the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. Esposito, the skipper of the Indians, our first guest on Inside the Indians. And Espo, we talk about how hard this game is to play, and you make a good point about guys having challenges because they're going to have them in the major leagues, no matter how good they are, so it's good for them to have them here too.
No doubt. This is an extremely competitive game. It's very hard in terms of the skill sets that you need to succeed in this game, and the game just continues to evolve. Guys are continuing to hone their craft and get better, and there's a ton of information that players are allowed to be exposed to now that could also enhance their skill set. So you need to be sharp in this game. You need to be able to not just be able to post up and play the game, but you also need to have a clear mind and understand what's going on. So struggles are going to happen. I think that it's imperative in players' development. I think you will learn from your struggles if you're willing to, and I think that's the key thing, is that players have to be willing to understand that when they're struggling, that it's sending a message for them to move something forward. And how you deal with these struggles is the next part of it.
I can't overemphasize how hard it is to play this game. In basketball, if you're good, you're good. Yeah, you'll have a challenge here and there, but it isn't as tough. Baseball is the hardest game in the world to play.
You know, I agree. I think so too. You know, there's just so many factors that have to do it, and it's an everyday thing. You know, a lot of sports, you know, if you look at the NFL, you know, you get to practice all week and play your one game on the weekend. So if you fall short, you know, you got a week to work on some things. In this game, it's just continual every day. You know, and with getting, you know, these everyday opportunities, you know, there's travel involved in it. There's home and road games. There's morning games followed by a night game, followed by another morning game. So there's a lot of things that go into it as well, which makes this game really tough. You know, you have shadows involved. You have so many different inside and outside factors that can impede on your performance that, you know, a lot of people just don't realize that. They just think that it's real cut and dry. You go out there and if you're a good hitter, you should be able to hit. If you're a good pitcher, you should be able to throw it over. But the reality is that it's not. It's really tough, and I really commend a lot of these guys that show up and they're able to play consistent baseball every day. There's something to be said about how good that is.
As the Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame manager Earl Weaver said, this isn't football. We do this every day around here. And Larry Parrish, who is a good big league player and a fine manager in this league with Toledo for many years, he said to me, he met a number of guys over the years who, if they only had to play this game once or twice a week, could have been good, but they didn't have it within them to do it every day.
Yeah, this is tough, man, because you know what, life goes on as well. You know, people have their things that go on in life, and then to be able to show up on this every single day, you know. There are very few off days in the minor leagues. They've added a few more, you know, off days in the big leagues to make it a little bit easier, but their schedule is extended, I believe, in about another 20 some odd games longer than ours. So it's a grind, you know, and if you let the grind get to you, it could definitely impede in your performance. So this is all about just being able to figure out who you are, show up when you need to show up, and get your work done, and be able to go out there and deal with the mental parts of it, the struggles, the successes, all these things kind of factor into play. So it's a very hard game. It's a very humbling game as well.
On last week's show, we talked about some of the AAA rookies here. Let's talk about some veteran players who've done really well. I say veteran his second year. Pablo Reyes played great here. Yeah,
he was a guy that, you know, last year was his first year. He went through some struggles, you know, and we continue to stay on top of him about being able to show up to be the best player on the field, whether it was on the bases, playing defense, or in the batter's box. So him coming back down this year from the, you know, after starting in the big leagues and getting his experience of struggles at that level When he came back down here, he was trying to do too much. He was trying to really just hang everything onto his at-bats and whether he was hitting or not. So we had to get him back into the swing of things, of understanding that, you're a really special player. You can do things on defense. You can do things on the bases. So even if you're 0 for 4, you need to find a way to help your team win games, and that's exactly what he did. And we talk about the game being really hard, but you have an opportunity to do something special for your club in all aspects of the game, not just whether you're hitting well or playing defense well.
In the end, I think most players appreciate the work you do with them and the fact that you are holding them to a high standard and you're holding them accountable.
Yeah, I think accountability in this game is almost accountability and dependability are your best abilities in this game. If you're accountable for what you do, you understand where you're falling short, you're understanding what you're doing, and it's easier for you to take a step back and say, okay, I need to get this done, or I understand why this is being done here, and let's go get it. Dependability is the same thing. To be able to post up every day and play this game on a nightly basis, there's a level of dependability from your players in the clubhouse. Your team is dependent on you, your organization is dependent on you, and as an individual, some of these guys, your family depends on you to provide what it is that you want to provide for them. And my thing is that I just don't want anyone to slip through the cracks, so holding these guys accountable is something I firmly believe in. Some guys need some motivation, some guys need a kick in the butt, some guys need a pat on the back. It's all about finding where these guys are and meeting them where they're at to just make sure that they're trying to get done what they need to get done.
One guy who was a last-minute acquisition before the season and has been sensational is Jake Elmore.
Yeah, he was a guy that I got to spend some time with him a couple of years back. We claimed him off waivers in one winter, and I got to spend some time with him down in Bradenton during our January pro camp. So I got to talk to him a little bit, and then I got to watch him play last year in Charlotte. So when I knew he became available, it was something that I really wanted to hop on. Not only does he have a great season going on at the plate, playing defense in multiple positions, so there's a lot of versatility, but at what he does in terms of leading in the clubhouse and leading by example, it's not just what he says, it's what he does. He's an older guy, he's about 32 years old that goes out and takes care of his body every day. So when you talk about being dependable and accountable, he holds himself accountable to make sure that he's ready, and he will give you a lot of dependability because of how well he takes care of himself. So I've noticed that a lot of our players, whether they're young or old, have noticed what he has done, and a lot of these guys have followed in his footsteps in how he prepares himself every day. So not only has he gotten it done on the field, but he's gotten it done in the clubhouse and off the field as well.
Trayvon Robinson's had a nice season.
Yeah, same thing. Another older guy that has been, to the big leagues, then back through independent ball, had an opportunity to come in spring training and win a job, and he did exactly that. And he's another guy that's very dependable. He comes in, he takes care of his body, he knows what he needs to get done, and he's available every night, whether it's off the bench or in the starting lineup. He's done some special things for us at the plate. Pinch hitting is a hard thing to do, and he's done a really nice job for us in our National League games coming off the bench. It's a professional at bat just about every time he toes up the batter's box. So he's another guy that he gets in what he puts in.
Espo, thank you so much. Great working with you. We appreciate your cooperation on these shows and on a daily basis as well. Thank you so much. That's Brian Esposito on the home of the Indians, WHMP. Infielder, outfielder Jake Elmore, our next guest on Inside the Indians. Jake, you've had a sensational season. The numbers reflected. I'd say you've even been better than that. Let's get your thoughts coming in, joining the organization and the ball club, and the way things have gone.
Well, it was a bit of a surprise toward the end of spring training. I was all set up to go back to Charlotte, where I was last year, and then got the call that the Indians or the Pirates wanted to trade for me, and I'd be coming to Indianapolis. And it seemed like a good situation, and I talked to my wife, decided it was the best opportunity for me, and so came here. And from day one, I've felt welcomed and felt like I was a part of what they had going here in the organization, everything. So it's been a great experience here in Indianapolis, and a brief time in Pittsburgh, and the whole Pirates organization as a whole has been a really good experience.
I think you've maintained a positive attitude. It's just your personality in general, and that sets a good example, too, for younger players.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to think that, work ethic and attitude and everything can be can be learned by some of the young guys, and so there's obviously a lot of young, talented guys here. So hopefully they've taken some things that I've learned, I've been able to pass on to them.
You swung the bat really well in contention for that batting title, but you've also played well on the field. The opportunity seemed to present itself a little more earlier in the season when you made some game-saving plays in the infield and the outfield.
Yeah. Last night I had a play in left field and I dove and caught it, and I was like, man, I feel like I haven't made like a real game-changing play in in a while. So sometimes, early in the year, I felt like I was getting almost like one a game almost, that I had a chance to really, impact a game in the field. So it was nice to have one last night, and, no matter where I'm playing.
What's it feel like? Hitting, you talk about hitting, guys want to hit, obviously it's very important. But when you make a play in the field, what's that feeling like to help win a game?
It is a lot different than hitting, and sometimes it's more rewarding, sometimes less rewarding depending on the situation. But to be able to, let's say, lay out in the gap with the bases loaded and save the pitcher pitching 3 runs, the joy you bring him and the joy you bring to the team by saving him runs, saving the team runs, everybody's behind you, where you come in the dugout and everybody's kind of fired up. And not to say a hit won't do the same thing, but a hit is more individual, whereas I feel like a play in the field, you're helping a lot of people around you, and so sometimes it's actually more rewarding.
Tell us about some highlights from your time in the big leagues, not only this season, but in your career.
Well, a couple things stand out. I was able to pitch and catch in the same game in Arlington versus the Rangers. I was with Houston. That was special. My first home run was actually in Arlington as well, not the same night, but I had, first home run was pretty big. And then I also played all 9 positions with Houston as well the same year I pitched and caught. So getting to jog out to center field as my finishing out with, I think we had maybe 6-7 games left. I went to center field, and that was my 9th position to play. So that was really fun.
Tell us the story behind pitching and catching in the same game.
Well, I was in the dugout. I was off that night, and we were American League, so we had a DH. So you kind of check out a little bit. You don't think, okay, I'm getting in this game. Well, around the 3rd inning, he came up to me, manager Bo Porter, and he said, "Hey Jake," he said, "you're probably pitching this game," because our pitcher was getting hit around, and I was kind of in shock. I said, "Okay." So I went in the locker room, probably 10 minutes later, went in the locker room and getting a different glove just in case I had to pitch, and all of a sudden, I hear the door almost break down, and one of our managers was like, "Jake, Jake, Jake." I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "You're in the game, you're catching." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And so I jog out there, and our catcher had been hit in the mask, and he had a concussion, and our backup catcher was DHing that night, so they didn't want to kill the DH and then have to hit a pitcher. So we were losing, I think, 8-0, and so I went in and I caught 4 innings, and then I pitched the 8th. So I caught, I guess, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I pitched the 8th.
Which do you prefer, the two?
Oh, catching, no doubt, no doubt. I caught all through high school, and I'm comfortable back there, and I pitched in high school too, but never enjoyed it, never liked that side of baseball as much as others, so catching for sure.
Well, when catchers go play a position, it feels like a day off to them.
Oh, exactly. You don't take a beating like you do a catcher. Being a catcher at this level, especially and up, takes a special breed. I mean, you take foul balls, your arms are sore, your legs are sore, and you have to hit all the same, just like every other guy. So. How
did your arm feel after you pitched that day?
Actually, it was fine. I was lucky enough to have 11 pitch innings. So yeah. So I got out of there quick, 3 up, 3 down, and if I had to throw many more than that, I'm sure I would have. I'd have had to be in the ice tub for about 24 hours. But I was actually surprisingly okay.
Jake, congratulations on an outstanding season, and also I congratulate you on the role model you are and the way you conduct yourself on a daily basis.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Jake Elmore, and this is the home of the Indians, WHMP TV Sports. catcher Christian Kelley, our next guest on Inside the Indians. Christian, you've done a wonderful job with this pitching staff. Tell us your thoughts when you look back at this season.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, it's a whole different level when you have guys moving up and down. So you really see a wide variety of guys. So really the communication part is big, talking to them, like what works for them, what's feeling good for them, and trying to use their strengths against the other team's weakness to really come out with a W every night, you know.
Sure. What's the difference for you working with pitchers at the AA level, which you did last year, as opposed to this year in AAA?
Usually the guys have their stuff a little more refined, so they have their third pitch is usually a little bit better. In the lower levels, you're usually just working with one or two, and then you're working on the third one, where this level is they have the third pitch, and you have to learn where to use it.
And sometimes in the AAA level, you're dealing with pitchers who have a lot of experience, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, they really teach me every night, you know, because a lot of these guys, I don't have big league experience yet, so them learning stuff in the big leagues and bringing it back to me is huge, and for me to just be a sponge and take it all in is really key.
Yeah, so that's a big difference between that and working with someone who's just been promoted from AA.
Definitely. And yeah, the roles change where sometimes the pitcher's kind of going to call his own game and he's going to lead the game, and sometimes when they get called up, it's like I either take ownership of getting them through, and then once they're comfortable, we start working together.
James Marvel has been here for a while, and he's done a great job. Tell us about catching him.
What makes him great is when he first shows up to the field. He has a plan, he has a routine, and he sticks to it every time. You know, he brings the scouting report to me, and he knows exactly what he wants to do to every single hitter, and sometimes he'll ask for my advice and what I think, and most of the time he's spot on what he's been watching in previous games, and he's pretty dialed in right when he gets to the ballpark.
I like the fact that when I watch him pitch, he moves the ball around very well, has great command of his fastball.
Yep. Yeah, so coming up through the system, the big thing was learning how to use your fastball, and the way he uses it, it almost gives him three pitches in a sense, where you can use it up, use it at the belt, and sink it wherever you want, and he gives himself almost a fifth or sixth pitch the way he uses his fastball.
And that's a wonderful thing for a pitcher to have. Some guys can work on that from today until tomorrow. They just don't have it. It's a genetic gift to some extent.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and that also is a testament to him, is how far he's come in his career, where he's learning who he is and, you know, where to use pitches and what times of the game.
Well, you mentioned that, and I remember in Syracuse when there was a man on third and one out, when you'd like to get a strikeout, he purposely elevated his fastball, had a better, and he got the strikeout.
Yeah, and all that was based off what that hitter looked like earlier in the series, the week before when we had faced him, and all of that had led up to that moment.
Tell us the story behind you signing a contract with the Pirates.
Well, I mean, I came from a D2, and, you know, that's really hard to do. We actually just signed a guy that I had caught in college.
Tell us the school.
Cal Poly Pomona, and that's in Southern California. And I wasn't really on anybody's radar. My redshirt sophomore year, I just had a really good year, and I caught a really good touted pitcher, and it all worked out from there.
So tell us about the draft.
Oh, I mean, I had a really good GPA, so like it was a tough decision for me because I was going to pursue somewhere in dentistry, somewhere in maybe like the nursing field, and I was hesitant to sign, but I mean I just love baseball that much where I wanted to give myself a chance to get to the big leagues.
Well, you know you can always pursue dentistry later.
Definitely, yeah, and I took that into account. I think just based off how much I saw the Pirates wanted me and how they moved me up, I didn't see myself going early in day 3, and I ended up being the Pirates' first pick in day 3, and I was not expecting that, and that definitely helped my decision a lot.
And you've climbed up the ladder. You know, as a catcher, you can rise through more quickly sometimes than at other positions.
Yeah, and it takes a toll too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a lot of that is really taking care of my body because a lot of guys, there's a lot of talented players that don't get to this level just because they get injured. So my key every year is stay healthy and give myself a chance.
We've had some really hot weather this summer. Do you ever say to yourself during the course of a game, not only is it hot, you got that equipment on, there are 7 guys out there just standing there, and look how hard I'm working behind the plate.
Yeah. As my career has gone, I've learned how to deal with pain. And, you know, you get hit with a ball behind the plate and you kind of just brush it off, and it's the only way just to deal with it is to forget about it. So when we get a hot day, I just try not to think about it at all and just take that into trying to forget about pain.
Mind over matter.
Mind over matter.
Beautifully said,
Yeah.
Christian. Thank you, and
Thank you.
congratulate you on all you've done this year.
Thank you.
That's Christian Kelley on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. We'd like to thank our guests, Brian Esposito, the Indians manager, infielder, outfielder Jake Elmore, and catcher Christian Kelley. See you next week on Inside the Indians.